Hi, I'm Kathy Hutchison. I'm the Vice President and Director of Marketing for iDebris. We're a firm that provides acoustic consulting, technology design, and theater planning in every sector that you work in. All of those projects need our services. And the lessons I want to share with you today are things that I've learned from the last 25 years of marketing consultants. And here's the big thought. So if this is the only thing you take away today, I'll be happy. That is that clients shortlist firms, but they hire people. Your firm's resume and portfolio and reputation will get you to the shortlist. But in that moment that the client is making the selection, they're hiring the people. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to package yourself to give you an edge, to make you a thought leader and just rise you a little bit above everybody else that potential client is considering. We're going to learn to identify your big idea. We're going to talk about influencing how you come up in search. We're going to talk about learning to deal in digital currency. We're going to learn to create content. And don't worry, I understand that you don't have all day to create content. And in fact, if you have a marketing team, they probably bug you all the time for content. We'll talk about how to make it a little less painful and a little faster and a little easier with a few tips and tricks. And then we'll talk about how to promote content. What can you do on your own that's pretty easy to do that, again, just gives you that little bit of an edge? So when I started my career back in 1996, this is all a marketer had to do. All we had to do is take our consultant and put them on a bio page. I'm sure you probably have a bio page, right? And then tweak that bio page to fit whatever RFP we were responding to. It was a good game because we had all the control. But that is not what it's like anymore. Because now we have Google, and now your client has control. 70% of people look you up online before they ever meet you. And you know it's true, right? You know it's true because you do it also. You're also looking people up. And to talk about how we look people up, I want you to picture a scene of you in a grocery store, and you are walking down the cereal aisle. You walk down the cereal aisle, and after a lifetime of being advertised to and seeing images and making snap decisions, you know how to read a cereal box. You know how to look under what you see, right? And you don't read all the fine print on the cereal box. No, you know, based on the cartoon on the front, if it's sugary sweet cereal, you know if it's uber healthy cereal, and you know if it's kind of a pretend it's healthy cereal, right? It's really a sugary cereal, but they're going to make you feel good about it by slapping the name granola on it or something. I want you to think about this image of walking down the aisle, looking at breakfast cereals, the same way that a client is going to look at their phone and scroll through their feed, looking for information about you. They do not have time to look at you deeply. They are just looking at the cover. And so what we're going to talk about today is how do you optimize your cover? You want to be a thought leader, and people are going to decide if you're a thought leader like that. Keeping in mind that we are all just cereal boxes in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry when a client is scrolling through stuff, I want to look at 3 different LinkedIn profiles for people on my team. And I want you to think about this idea of how quickly we make decisions. So the first one is Courtney Shadle. You see her photo? You see her name and you see that she's a senior consultant at IDBRI. You have no idea that she is an amazing acoustic consultant, or that and though it says she's been NSPORD certified, you don't know actually what that means, that it makes her an incredible specialist in noise control. You don't know that she teaches acoustics at the University of Texas at Dallas. And you don't really know anything about her, right? And if you're scrolling, that's it. That's all you've got. Courtney Shadle, senior consultant at IDBRI. You don't know what that means. And you're not going to dig deeper to find out. If you were to go down to her summary paragraph, you would read that she is a blend of specialized acoustics and theater design for spaces where people come together to share an experience. But you're probably not going to read that far. All right, let's look at the next one. So this is Ben Bason's. His says the same thing, senior consultant at IDBRI. Just for the record, this is what LinkedIn puts in as the default, is your title and your company. But you can customize it. We'll get to that. And Ben's done a little better. So Ben has put in that you can kind of see maybe the types of projects that he works on. And he does design audio systems for big arenas. So that gives you a little bit more of an idea. And then let's look at Craig Jansen. So Craig Jansen, it actually tells you what he does. So he's edited that line below his name on LinkedIn, helping leaders navigate engagement and technology shifts. He leads the team at IDBRI. And the photo that he's put up above is him leading actually a hybrid meeting. So it shows that he's leading people in engagement and technology shifts. When you're working with your image, you want to control what you can control. And since LinkedIn gives you the capacity to change the photo at the top, since it gives you the capacity to put in a profile photo and to edit that line, take advantage of it. You want to control the front of your cereal box. Okay, let's talk a little bit about ideas and leadership. You see that Craig has put an idea here. It's not just his title and his name, it's his idea. What's your big idea? So when you're thinking about what your big idea might be, what you want associated with yourself, that can feel really overwhelming. Luckily, there's a place that you can find it, and I happen to like it, that this is shown in a Venn diagram. So you want something that's aligned with your client's interests, something that they would be interested in. But it also has to be aligned with your expertise. Clearly, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and say that you're an expert in heart surgery if you've never done a heart surgery, right? And if you're an architect and you specialize in a certain area, you're not going to say that you do, that you do urban planning if your specialty is hospital design. What you want to find is that place that's aligned with your expertise, but that's also aligned with your interest. And here's why that little piece right there is vital. Because you are going to get tired of the big idea long before it permeates the marketplace. You are going to find yourself dealing in this big idea and in the currency of this big idea over and over and over. It's the only way that you reach expert status. And it's so easy, especially with architects, because you're so visionary and you have so much ideation to want to go to the next new shiny thing. But you're wanting to create this identity, this cereal box identity that people are just going to look at quickly and know you're the expert and know you're the expert in that thing. So how do you create this cereal box identity? It's super simple. Your photo plus your big idea, that becomes your packaging, because that's what people see online. They see your photo and they see some words. So I don't know how much thought you put in to your photo, but spend some time noticing what you react to, what you think of people when you see their photos. Go on other architects' sites and look at those walls of images. You'll find that random images of people actually make you feel something about them. How they're dressed, how they're positioned, whether they're standing like this, or they're leaning against the desk and leaning in. All of those things that photographers do create an image. It becomes your cereal box. Your photo plus your big idea becomes your packaging. Here's what you're going to do with that packaging. You're going to put your big idea and your photo where people will find it when they're searching for you. So if 70% of people look you up online before they meet with you, what do they find? So here's some quick low-hanging fruit. So tips and tricks. Make sure that you put it in the summary of your LinkedIn profile, that your big idea is there. Make sure and grab your name on social media real estate and put your big idea in the bio, even if you're not going to be active on the platform. And get your name as a domain and create a one-page website that includes your big idea. So let's talk about, those are the quick, like if you were just going to do 3 things, those are 3 quick things you can do to get your cereal box out there on the shelf. But let's talk a little bit deeper, what you can control. You can't control what comes up on Google, but you can influence it. And by controlling these little elements that are open to you. Okay, so if you're going to influence how you come up in a search, you're going to want to start with a clean search. So your browser knows you, unless you're using DuckDuckGo or some other browser that doesn't track. Most of the others like Safari and Chrome and Firefox, they know what you've been searching for, and they tailor results to be more helpful to you based on your past search patterns. But if you want to see what a client's going to see, you've got to pull up an incognito browser. In Chrome, that's Control-Shift-N will bring up an incognito browser. I believe it's the same in Safari. Command-Shift-N in Safari. So you're going to search for your name. And since this is a recorded session, push pause and do that now. Okay, some of you, probably nothing really came up. Maybe it's a mix of you and other people who share your name. Some of you have the same situation that my friend Ashley Roberts has. Ashley Roberts works for Perkins & Will. And when you search for Ashley Roberts online, you get Ashley Roberts, the Pussycat Doll. Now here's the thing. Ashley Roberts, the Pussycat Doll has a paid publicist whose job it is to keep her on the front page of Google. And you're likely not going to invest that much money to displace her. But think about whenever you look for somebody and you find the wrong person, then you start adding in other words like architect or the name of the firm or the city to narrow it down. So think about what other people might add in that could help you get closer, and then don't just own your name, but own your name plus architect and work from there. If you're John Smith, it's just going to be really hard and you're going to have to really optimize your profile on LinkedIn. Some names are very, very common and hard to own. There are 4 things that Google prioritizes. Now consider that people pay tons of money for SEO, search engine optimization, to get on the front page of Google. But there's 4 simple things that you can make work for you because they're easy and anybody can do them. So the first is that Google prioritizes it when the keyword is in the URL. So if somebody searches for acoustics, acoustics.com is probably going to come up first because Google considers that authoritative. If the term is actually in the URL, then it's probably the main point of that page. The other thing Google prioritizes is big sites that lots of people link to. If a lot of people are linking to it, then it's probably really good content. And remember that Google doesn't read the content. Google's just search, it's just an algorithm. So one of the ways that they make sure they get you good content is by referring you first to sites that a lot of people are linking to. It's called domain authority. News sites are given permission. One of the things that I often see come up when people search for themselves is the people on the move from the different cities' business journals tends to come up pretty high. Last time I checked on it, it's about $250. But if you don't have much going for you on your page, if not a lot comes up, it might be worth that $250 to get some good press about who you are and what you do and what your big idea is. And then when the keyword is in the headings or the subheadings, so a lot of times on our company websites, the person's name will be a heading or a subheading, and that helps. Google prioritizes that as information on the page. So let's go back to Courtney Shadle, who again is an amazing acoustics consultant, a very talented theater designer. And let's see what comes up when we search for her in an incognito browser. So one of the first things that comes up for her is LinkedIn. LinkedIn often comes up as the very first entry. Our marketing team offers everybody on our team to help them with their LinkedIn profiles. I understand that we may just be optimizing them for the competition to pick them up, but we know our clients are looking and we know that that comes up first. So it really, really matters. So that big site, LinkedIn, comes up first. The next one is her profile on idebris.com. Her name is in the URL for that. DallasAcoustics.com. Courtney's name is in the headings. Facebook, it's a big site. Facebook has a setting where you can get it to not come up in main search, but most people don't go into their privacy settings and tweak that, so Facebook often does come up. And then the U.S. Green Building Council comes up on the front page. So all of these are places where Courtney can go in and control the information that are on these sites. So why not max it out? Control the photo, control the message, and associate it with a big idea. If you belong to the AIA, which I'm assuming you do, then anytime they write a profile on you, that is likely to come up high. And definitely fill out your profile on these organizations you belong to, especially when it's for an organization that your client cares about. Frequently, it will come up on the front page, but you have to put some time and attention to it. Okay, so I want to talk about a little bit of a makeover that we did for Vance Brashears, who's in our San Diego office. So this is Vance's CV, and if you ever put idebris on a team, you're likely to get Vance's CV, especially if you're in San Diego. And, you know, it's perfectly functional, but people look you up online beforehand. And unfortunately, when you looked Vance up, there just wasn't a lot of information. And it definitely wasn't information that was associated directly with him. So the marketers on our team, we asked Vance if we could help with that. And here's the thing with Vance. Vance hates social media. He is a face-to-face kind of guy. He feels like social media is plastic, it's inauthentic, it's just not great for relationships. That's Vance's view on it. So he wasn't super keen on spending a lot of time in it. But we showed him the Google search and asked, could we please? And this is what happened. We did two things. So I want you to notice that, you know, a couple of months before we did this page didn't have a lot about Vance. I mean, he owned the top 4 and then nothing. We set up a Twitter account for Vance. We tweeted for him about 4 times. Here's what Twitter does for you. It shows Vance collaborating with people on his team. That's the quick instance. I've already mentioned Vance is a highly relational guy, and he gets deeply connected with his clients. And then we got to own the bio, so people would know they had the right Vance Brashears. And we put a few tweets on there about different projects. So you could get a snapshot, cereal box kind of view of Vance. We wanted to get vancebrashears.com for him. And Vance wasn't keen on blogging. But what he was keen on is creating a place where he could send messages to the search and rescue team that he volunteers with. Here's the thing about when the personal and the professional blend. It can blend in some really incredible ways. Vance's clients think it's amazing that he does search and rescue on the weekends. It shows that he's willing to do hard things. It shows that he's willing to give his time in service of something bigger than himself. It shows that he is technically competent. And it shows that he actually cares about the people around him. That is attractive stuff to a client. So don't be super worried when your personal and professional blend. Quite frankly, that's where things are going. But I still encounter some people who feel a little nervous about that. Don't be nervous about that. Clearly there are activities you could be involved in that might be challenging for your work. But most people's hobbies and activities aren't that. Most people's hobbies and activities are the kinds of things that your clients may connect with you with deeply. All right, if you decide to get your name as a domain, let's talk about that. So you're going to get your domain through some kind of a domain provider, and this could be GoDaddy, HostGator, Squarespace, Google Domains, or some other service. What I need to explain, if you're not super familiar with this, is that the domain and the actual website itself are separate. So you're going to buy the domain. It's like buying a street address and then buying the house and the land separate from each other. And then you'll have to connect them together. There's instructions on how to do that. Or you might choose a host and then get your domain through that host to make it a little easier. You're going to have to watch expenses. Your domain should cost less than $20 a year. If it's more than that, then somebody's probably bought it speculatively and they may be selling it for $2,000 or something. You're going to have to decide how important it is to get that. And there's always different versions. .com is desirable, but there's also .net and .me and .us and all kinds of things. There are multiple tools to build a one-page website. If you're really fluent in Google Docs, you can get sites.google.com. It works just like a Google Doc. Wix is fairly easy to use and looks really polished. If you the most popular site by far is WordPress. WordPress can be expensive for hosting. It can be about $300 a year. Wix is about $150 a year, and sites.google.com is free. Let me show you 3 different tacks you can take to make a one-page website for yourself to put on your name domain that's as easy as it could possibly be. All right, so this is Vikram Gandhi, and what I love about this one-page website is there's this quintessential picture of him with the aunties. You get a picture of what his life is like, right? And it says who he is, and it tells what he does. I'm a director of films, nonfiction, fiction, and the spaces in between. And then there's paragraphs with links to all kinds of places and people that he's worked with. Let's say you don't have this incredibly interesting picture. This next website is built around a sentence. Irwandu, a relentless mind focused on design and frameworks. Who wouldn't want to work with a relentless mind? Like, that sounds so interesting and so engaging. And then he just has 2 short little lists. Currently working with, previously worked with, and at the bottom, there's a list of different ways to get in touch with him. Or it could be even easier. Look at Jason Briscoe. Jason Briscoe, 1 paragraph, no photos, and 1 link to his email address. So those are ways that you can get a one-page website. Again, you're just wanting to get information on that front page of a Google search, and if somebody searches your name and your name is the URL, it's likely to come up very high. Let's talk a little bit about other ways that you're going to use your big idea. That is creating content. And I just feel people cringe when we talk about creating content because every marketer who has chased you down for a blog post, you don't have time for that. We'll get there to how, but I want to talk about the structure of it to start. So you've got this big idea. This big idea is going to produce headlines. So you're going to come up with maybe 3 different headlines, topics around your big idea. And then under those headlines, those topics, you're going to create content. There are lots of different kinds of content. You can write a blog, you can produce an ebook, you can be interviewed on a podcast, you could be quoted for a publication, you could do a webinar, or you could do a short YouTube video, all different kinds of content that you could produce, whatever is best aligned with how you think and how you communicate. So keep this structure in mind, and let's talk about another sort of big theme to this. And that is, if you want people to care about your idea, you're going to have to learn to deal in their currency. Usually in social media, especially for firms like mine that have a small marketing team, social media goes something like this. Yay, yay, look at this great project that we did. Or, yay, yay, look at this conference that we're attending and speaking at. Or, yay, yay, look at us building Habitat for Humanity. It's all focused on us. Why? It's easy to do. It's easy to get the imagery. It's easy to write. It's easy to do in the moment. And most of us default to that. If there's no strategy in place, then that's going to be what you do naturally. Let's look at how one firm used strategy. Gensler has a big team, I want to say, that works on this. They've got some major talents leading their social media. So if you happen to be on this day, and it's been a little while, but on this day, if you happen to be on Gensler's Twitter feed, you would have seen this image. And I want to call out what the content is. So the first piece of content says, what if retailers could capture user experience data of design before projects start construction? That is not about Gensler. That is about retailers. If I'm a retailer and I'm looking at building and I'm worried about the expense of building, then this is the kind of content I would share with other people on my team. All right, next one. Inspire your employees by making change a constant in your organization. If I'm a workplace client, this might be the kind of thing I share with other people on my leadership team. It's about Gensler, but it's not about Gensler. It's all centered around the client. Let me show you the other couple of brilliant things they did with this. At the bottom of each of these articles, there's a quick little bio on the person who was interviewed, who produced this content. So you've got a bio on William Maglonzo, you've got a bio on Deanna Siller. Let's keep going. Let's say that you do a quick search on William Maglonzo. Look at what comes up about him. Mapping presence in virtual reality environments, retail centers, lifestyle strategy and design, design flow and analysis for architects. All of a sudden you're looking at this and you get this association of him. It's this high level thought content. Here's what I want you to notice, and hopefully you can see on the screen. Every single one of these articles that come up about William Maglonzo when you Google him are on Gensler's blog. They produced this content. They hosted the content. No magazine had to cover them. They're creating it on their own, and Google is picking it up. You have to orient around the currency that the client deals in. And here's the other thing. Likes feel good, but they do not matter. What you're going for is content. If you're going to go to all the trouble to produce content, you're looking for something that the client will share, or you're looking to connect with influencers. In the digital world, that is super easy to do because all you have to do is tag them. Skiles Group is really good. They're a construction company in Dallas. They are amazing at tagging their content. Every time they post something, they always tag the people they interviewed. They tag the other people who were connected to the project. And that makes the people they tag feel good and gives them exposure. And it creates that connection and more shares. People share content that they're tagged in. When you're creating content, your headline is the most important thing about it. If you get it wrong, no one sees it. So, as people are scrolling, what are they going to click on? They're not going to click on one thing that's mildly interesting. They don't have time. You don't have time. How many stacks of trade magazines used to pile up on your desk? Because you just didn't have time. Unless it's compelling, unless it was information you felt like you needed to know right then, it was really difficult to prioritize opening that magazine. It's the same thing with stuff that comes through social media. Unless it's really compelling, you just don't click. And it doesn't matter how great the content is. If you can't get somebody to click on that headline, then it doesn't matter. They'll never see it. And I know that clickbait gets a bad rap. It's not clickbait if the content is good. But the strategies used in clickbait, power words, keywords being laced through it, all of that stuff actually gets your content clicked on and seen. So the question is your big idea popular enough for people to share or to click on? Most of you guys are working with some kind of a niche. So you are either trying to target school superintendents or hospital administrators, or maybe you're trying to, venue owners of big convention centers and operators. So your niche is small and you already know what they care about because you're spending time with them. Some of the most amazingly intimate conversations happen in a programming design meeting. People talk about their business problems. People talk about their hopes and their aspirations. You know these people. You know what they care about, and you're going to want to center your content around that. You can also do a little bit of research to see how popular things are. But again, this is with a big mass of people. So is your big idea popular enough to share? One good tool is ubersuggest.com. So let's say that your big idea, let's say you're an urban planner and you are always talking about driverless cars. That's your big idea that you're associated with, is how driverless cars impact urban planning. You can see how popular that topic is by going to ubersuggest.com and typing it in. And what you want to look for is backlinks. How many other sites are linking to that article? And this will give you Facebook shares. Pinterest shares are probably going to be irrelevant for most of the things you'll search for. But it tells you what kind of content are people interested in and clicking on around your topic. All right. Let's talk about the cold, hard reality of creating content in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. This is a deadline-driven industry. And the last thing that you want to do, it's the easiest to put off, is content, right? You've got designs to do and deadlines to meet, and you have to put together that RFP to send out to the subs. You've got so much going on, and everything has to be done yesterday. It is very hard to prioritize content. But as long as you're reactive instead of proactive on it, it's not going to happen for you. You're not going to have that thought leadership. You're going to look at your competitor as you see what they put out on LinkedIn and go, oh, I meant to do that. I was going to do that very thing. And they will have beaten you to it. You have to put a little bit of time, not a lot of time, but a little bit of time to think about this every week and defend it at night point. 30 minutes a week is enough because you have people you work with who can help you. All right, let's talk about 3 AEC life hacks. Get everything you do transcribed. You can use a service, an automated service like Temi.com. It's very cheap. Rev.com is more accurate. It's a little more expensive. So it kind of depends on what you need, what your budget is. Every time you're interviewed on a podcast, every time you have a client meeting, every time you're sharing anything even remotely associated with your big idea, get it transcribed. Why? Because it's easier to scan later and find content and pull it out. You don't want to re-listen for an hour to that thing that you did. You give a presentation, you get it transcribed. Next, hire a ghostwriter. This is worth its weight in gold. And when you're hiring a ghostwriter, you're not hiring somebody that's going to make stuff up on your behalf. No, you're hiring a skilled journalist who's going to interview you and then is going to write a piece based on what you said and send it back to you to edit and make sure that it's exactly what you want it to say. It is the fastest and most effective way to get your content done. It's worth some investment. Quite frankly, it's worth some investment of your personal money, but you probably have marketing budget for it. All right. Repurpose your presentations. So if you are presenting to your clients for some conference that you're speaking at, then you can take that same content and do a shorter version, take the very best piece of it and make a 3-minute video and put it on YouTube. There are ways to create content without having to do it. You do this all the time. You create presentations for clients that deal with their most specific problems that you could pull 3 minutes out of that and make it into a blog post. You could make it into a LinkedIn write-up. You could make it into a video. You might expand it, make it into a webinar. But instead, you keep doing the same thing and then it sits on the shelf. Like you've created this awesome thing, but that was 5 deadlines ago. Get in the practice of repurposing your presentations. And if you have a good marketing team, you can usually hand them to the marketing team and say, help me with this, turn it into content. And they will be thrilled. All right, let's talk about some easy ways to pitch, place, and promote your content. So there's different levels to this. Let's talk about how to pitch to major blogs, magazines, and conferences. So this is content that other people own and control, and you've got to get an editor to pick you and publish your stuff. They tend to have really big audiences, and that's the big attraction. Okay, first, you're going to want to find and read the guidelines. Somewhere on that site is a little tiny link that's going to tell you how to pitch to them. And you want to follow that to the letter. Second, you want to realize that the audience is just one person scanning what you sent, right? Again, we're all scanning cereal boxes. We're just scanning. The audience is one person scanning what you sent. Research what they need. So look through the content, see what it is that they've produced, see what holes there are. Because this publication is probably in some area of your expertise or your client's expertise. See what's missing and pitch on that. When you pitch, be brief and to the point because they're scanning. They don't have any more time than you do. They can't go deep. And next, resend. These people go through so much content every day, they're not going to remember you. And if you just happen to hit them in a bad moment when they came across your email, resend again in 2 months. They will not remember and you might get picked up. All right, let's talk about DIY placement. So these are things that you control, where you're actually doing the publishing and the hosting. The first is your company's blog. Again, if you have a company blog, your marketers would be delighted. And keep in mind how effective Gensler was using their blog. It really does work, and it does Google places things. Medium.com is a fantastic place to publish. Here's the thing with Medium.com. It is journalistic. You're going to want to hire, if you're not a super strong writer, you're going to want to hire a ghostwriter for anything that you publish there, but you do publish there. It won't get read or promoted if it's not good. So take some time with this. Make sure the piece you submit is really well edited, but you control, you hit publish, and Google reads that stuff and picks it up. It can wind up on the first page because Medium's a big site. LinkedIn is a go-to. You can publish directly to LinkedIn. Write a LinkedIn post and it'll go to your network. What you're looking for is things that your clients are going to find in a search. Okay, how do you promote your content? Because once you create good content, you don't want it just to get pushed out once. You want to keep it coming, keep it promoting, keep it fresh and out there. So you can use a scheduler like Missing Letter or Buffer, which will automate the publishing of it on a schedule. So think about, it's as if you have an editorial calendar and it's going to drop that post 1 month and then maybe 2 months later and then maybe 6 months later, so that it keeps getting cycled because not everybody's going to see it the first time. Get people on your team to share content, especially if it's a good piece. People usually feel really good about sharing it. You can't ask people to share lame stuff. It's got to be good. Tag people. I showed you how Skiles Group does that really effectively. Give shout outs. Tag people who are featured in it. Use hashtags, but not obnoxiously. So 1 to 3 hashtags is okay because people click on those hashtags and it pulls up your content. 20 hashtags is a lot. You're not an Instagram celebrity. All right, I want to talk about how this works when you've been doing it over time. So Craig Jansen's big idea is that there is a shift in technology. That shift in technology has changed culture, and it's changed the way that people are engaging with each other. All of our clients are experiencing this, whether it's in sports and fans are engaging in completely different ways, or if it's in the arts and people are struggling to get audiences to engage, in the workplace, getting employees engaged and connected. All of these things, all of our people across the board are struggling with this idea of engagement. And this is something that Craig Jansen is an expert in, this shift in how it's impacted engagement. So let's look at that. When you search for his name online, I want you to see how this big idea comes through. Craig Jansen helps leaders navigate audience engagement and technology shifts. Helps leaders navigate shifts in technology and engagement. I help leaders navigate engagement and technology shifts. So over and over and over, this big idea comes through. That's his cereal box. He has a talk about pitching. He has a TED Talk on this very topic. I want to leave you with this final thought. Why does any of this even matter? Because there's a reason that you went into your chosen profession. You had big dreams and big goals. And we all know that there are projects that can suck the life out of you. There are clients that are so painful and so draining that it makes you wonder why you even went into this business and why you stay. But there are also projects that are amazing. The kind of projects that deeply connect you to your purpose That when you're working on those projects, you know that you're doing exactly what you're meant to do. The people who are choosing who to hire for those projects are searching online. They are searching for tons and tons of people. Make sure they find you, and they find you in a light that shows off what makes you truly, truly great. I am happy to answer any questions that you would like to send to me. And thank you so much for joining us today.